Hey, to make this Shawlette, you need at least a 70 peg half gauge loom. You can use one larger if you want a larger shawl, and you need a number 2 sport weight yarn.
Okay, we're going to start our pattern, and by doing that, we're going to do a slip knot, make a slip knot. I'm left-handed, so I do it backwards, and we're going to put our slip knot on our starting peg, and this would be this peg right here, and that is your cast on. It's the only cast on that you'll do. Now, the rice rib stitch consists of one row purlovers and the second row wrap 2 purl 1. So when you increase a peg, we're going to be, every time you increase a peg, you're going to be doing purlovers. So what we're going to do, we're going to be doing the E-wrap knit stitch. We'll wrap the second peg twice, E-wrap. I'm going to scoop up from the bottom. I want to zoom in just a little bit here. Let's scoop up from the bottom, pull the top loop down, flip it over that peg and snug it up. Barely snug it up. You don't want it loose, you don't want it too tight. If you get it too tight, it's going to be aggravating trying to flip your loops over from these purlovers. Okay, normally then after we increase a peg, we go back and we do the row backwards. We're going to do the row back again, but we can't wrap 2 here because we only have 1 peg. So what I do is I just go ahead and do a purl over here, the same way, scoop up from the bottom, pull the top loop down, flip it over the peg, snug it up. That's the only time you'll do a purl over, when you go back this way. Okay, now we're going to start increasing again. So that means this will be a purl over. And we're going to increase this third peg here. That means it's going to be a purl over. Okay, at this point, you need to pull this tail yarn and kind of tauten that up just a little bit because you want that peak to form for your shawl on the end. Now we're going back. We have 2 pegs that we can wrap and purl 1. So we're going to wrap these pegs. We're coming from behind the third peg, wrap from behind, bring your yarn around to the front like a big E-wrap, knit them off, and since you're wrapping from this side, this would be the peg that you need to purl. Now from now on, you will always be purling this peg that you started with when you come backwards after you increase a peg. And you can pull this again and kind of tauten that up a little bit so you'll form that peak. Okay, now we're going to go back, purl over, purl over, increase that 4th peg, which is another purl over. You'll have to wrap it twice. Okay, now when you go back, you're going to have 3 pegs here. You're still going to have an odd peg. Every other row when you go back after you increase a peg, you're going to have an odd peg. So what you do is you go ahead and wrap these 2 because that's what the second row of the rice rib stitch calls for. And you're going to knit them off. And then you're going to purl the second one here. And then when you come to this odd one, remember I said you always purl this one from now on? Just purl it. And it's that simple. Okay, I'm ready to change colors now. I'm getting ready to start the grapefruit shade, which is the next shade down from the pomegranate. And I have got my panel done, and this is what it's supposed to look like so far. And I'll work from my starter peg to this peg, which is exactly half the loom. The second seam to the loom is over here. That's how I know it's half. I don't even have to count the pegs. And I just cut my yarn, my working yarn, to the pomegranate that I was working on. Now I have the next color, which is grapefruit, and I'm going to make a slip knot just like before and leave enough to work in and tie off to the existing color. Leave a long enough tail. And I'm going to put it on this peg right here, and we're going to purl it. Remember, I said we always purl this peg right here, except for that one time in the very beginning that I showed you. Now, the way you're going to purl this is you're going to put it down below the existing loop that's on there. Okay, and you're going to pull that existing loop up to the top. And then you're going to pull it up and over the peg and make your purl stitch. Okay? Need to see that again? Alright, my loop's got a little big because I've been playing with it. Okay, here's my slip knot. I'm going to put it on this peg. And if you want to, you could make it a little bigger and just go ahead and place it below the existing loop like that. Then pull it a little bit tighter. And see, now it's below, just like you would if you were doing a purl. So I'm going to go in from the top, pull it up, make a little loop here. And I'm going to take that loop and put it back on the peg, and I've got my purl. And you want to tighten your ends up. And then tie them off. Your tail yarn and your working yarn that you had left over. And then you'll have it fixed right here. Right there. And you could tie it a second time if you want to. I'm just going to leave it one time for right now. And then you'll just go on about your business as you were doing before. And I do want to keep stressing every time that you purl this peg and you're going back this way and doing your purl overs, always remember to tug on this a little bit, because this is your little purl bump right here. You want that to be tight. If you don't do that, it's going to be loose. Okay, I'm back. I have finished all my increases from peg 1 to 69. I'm getting ready to show you what we do with number 70 as we start decreasing. And this is half of the triangular shawl. And when we decrease, we're going to be doing the second half. And this is what it's supposed to look like. The stitch. This is all the rice rib stitch. And I did add some colors in here that, like I said before, that's up to you. You can do it the way you want to. However, I would suggest for it to turn out exactly the way this one did, that you use a number 2 weight yarn to get this airy look and this lacy type texture. If you use a 3 or 4, I've tried it with a 4 and it looks much more denser. It's not as lacy and airy looking. Okay, let's flip this over so I can get to peg 69 and 70 here, so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to try to lay that. There we go. And I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. There we go. Okay. Now, we have done all of our purl overs, and we're back to peg 70. This is 69, and we're going to start decreasing. Now, I've learned from trial and error that decreasing on the shawl, you don't need to do a purl over on 70. You need to do an E-wrap, because this is forming the peak of your shawl where it angles down. And you don't want that to be puckered. The first time I ever made one, that's how I learned, was it puckered a little bit because I was purling over this peg, and a purl over is a tight stitch, so you don't want to do that. You want to have a looser stitch here. So what we're going to do is we're going to E-wrap. We're going to knit off, and then we're going to take this loop, because we're decreasing, and we're going to put it on peg 69, and we're going to tighten it up. And then we're going to knit it off. Okay. Then, as you know, the rice rib stitch, the second row, is wrap 2, purl 1. So you'll begin your wrap 2, purl 1, knit off, purl the second peg, and you'll do the same, and on around the loom until you get back to peg 1. And it's the same. Remember, I told you peg 1, you always purl. Okay? So you're going around doing your wrap 2, purl 1 until you get to here. And depending on whether you have 2 pegs to wrap or you wrap these 2 and have one, odd one every other row, like I had mentioned earlier in the video, you will still always purl this one. When I get back to the last 2 or 3 pegs, when I get down to the last 2 or 3 pegs of finishing this, I will come back and I will show you what it looks like when we take it off the loom. And then we'll do the crocheted edge, because it really needs a crocheted edge, and the reason I'm going to tell you is because this does curl under a little bit. You can see it wants to roll under, and that crocheted edge will keep it from doing that. It'll relax and it'll keep it from doing that, because I've made, this will be the 3rd one so far, and the other 2 I made, it stopped that, as you can see right here. It's not curled under. So I do suggest you crochet peg every time you come around the peg that you're supposed to decrease on. Make sure you E-wrap it and knit off, and then start your wrapping 2, purling 1. If anybody has any questions after I finish this, please don't hesitate to ask me. I'll help you any way I can. If you want to email me, lumenkrafty at lumenkrafty@gmail.com, or comment in the section below. Don't hesitate to ask me to clarify something, or if you have any kind of questions. And if I forget to put something in the description box or something, because sometimes that happens. But I will be back when I get ready to finish this, and I will see you then. Okay, I have already purled this stitch, and I have done a purl over on this stitch. Now I'm going to do a purl over here, and an E-wrap here, because I'm always E-wrapping when I'm decreasing, always E-wrapping that peg so I have a nice clean edge that won't pucker on me. And then I'm going to take that off, put it on that peg, knit it off, and then I'm going to wrap these 2 and purl. And then I'm going to do a purl over, and I'm still going to pull that so that little purl bump there tightens up so it won't be loose. Then I'm going to E-wrap this one because I'm decreasing this last peg. And then I'm going to take it off, put it on this one, then tighten it up, knit off, and then I'm going to purl this one. Let's do an E-wrap on this one, this last peg. Take it off, put it over here, knit off, and then we're going to take it off the loom. And you have this loop here. And we're going to cut our yarn. going to take our crochet hook. We're going to pull it through. And tighten it up. And now your shawl is off the loom. Okay, now I'm going to crochet my edging. And I've already made my slip knot, went in through my first stitch. And I'm going to go in the next one. And I'm going to do a single crochet all the way across till I get to the end. And this will give it a nice little clean looking edge. And keep it from rolling. I'm not a professional crocheter, so don't judge my crochet. I can do a little bit of edging like this, but that's about it. So I'm going to go all the way across, and then we'll be done except for the fringe.
Don't forget to like and subscribe my video.